And I want to welcome everybody once again to our career prep series, Landing the Job You Want. And today's session is resume building. And my guest today is Jenny Readiness from Custom Profile. And welcome, Jenny. And I want to turn the floor over to you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's nice to meet you all virtually, and hopefully someday we can all connect in person. I will share my screen, but I wanted to at least give a little bit of intro about me and where I'm from. Like Eric said, my name is Jenny Readiness. I'm the HR manager at Custom Profile. We are a plastics manufacturer. So what we do is we make plastic pieces that go in the furniture, appliance, marine industry. We're really diversified. We're a growing company. We have 3 locations. We have a location in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I am at right now. We have a facility in South Carolina and a facility down in Juarez, Mexico. So we service people all over the country with our plastic pieces, which is great. We're excited and growing, and we just have a lot going on. So I'm super excited to talk to you guys today about resume building. I have worked at Custom Profile for the last 20 years, and I have seen a lot of resumes, the good, the bad, the ugly. So I'm happy to share some helpful hints with all of you as you start making your resumes, as you start looking for your first jobs potentially, or even, maybe some, other jobs down the road, and what I found works best for those out there. So I am going to share. Well, this is one thing I should have practiced, Eric, was not having all my documents open.
No worries.
Do you see the resume template up on the screen?
I do not. Yeah, I still see yours. So have you shared your screen yet?
Yeah.
I've got the template, so I can pull it up.
Here we go.
There we are. We're good.
Alrighty. So, resumes are a interesting thing, right? You have to try to capture all of the important information into a short, concise document. I am going to tell you it needs to be 1 page. That's it. 1 page. Don't go over. Don't have 1 line on the second page. Don't have it front and back. The majority of people looking at them, if they're looking through a lot of resumes, they do not have time to sift through pages and pages and pages of everything about your history. So keep it concise. That's hard to do, especially once you start growing in your career and have so much accomplishments that you want to make sure you highlight. You're going to have to keep the resume concise. So, obviously this is self-explanatory, but first name, last name, address, phone number, and email address. The email address, keep it professional. If you have an email address that is hotmama@gmail.com, I want you to go out and create a business professional email address and use your business professional one on your resume and use your other one for your personal email. I am not joking. I have seen it before. Please use a professional email address, number 1. The second thing is your phone number. Obviously standard phone number, but make sure you have a professional voicemail. If you are looking for a job and I am calling you to talk about your resume, I want to hear a professional voicemail on the other side. I want you to have a voicemail set up. I sometimes will email candidates. I am never going to text a candidate. So I want you to, if you have the voicemail capability, set up your voicemail. If you set up your voicemail, have it professional, and then also check it. So when I call and leave a message, I don't want to get a call back saying, someone just called me from this number. I want you to listen to the voicemail and then call me back when you're ready to have a conversation. So those are just some helpful hints, and they happen all the time. Sometimes I call people and their voicemail isn't set up. Sometimes I get a voicemail, but I don't really even know who I'm calling, if it's the correct number, if it's the correct person, if it gets to the right person. So keep all of those things in mind when you have your phone number listed there. And especially if you're looking for a job, you want to pay close attention to that. And like I said, sometimes I'll email and communicate via email because sometimes that is easier. But there are times where I will call, or I'll set up a phone interview and we'll call at the time we schedule. So it's being prepared at that time, right? You want to be ready for me. When I call, I don't want to have to leave a voicemail and you call me back, or I have to follow up. I want to treat it like an in-person appointment where if you're not going to be late in person, don't be late on the phone. So those are my hints there. Education is where you'll put your name or your high school. I'm sorry, your high school, and then some of your achievements in high school. If you have good grade point average, you can put it there. If you're involved in activities, put them there. If you really want to put any important information from your high school experience, especially if you're new looking for a job. You might not have a lot of work history, so you want to make sure you capitalize on your strengths from school. If you were on a leadership committee at school, if you were in Science Olympiad in school, which I don't even know if they still have that. That was around when I was younger. Things like that, make sure you highlight. If you were in the National Honor Society, in band, a leader on the football team, whatever the case may be, make sure you highlight those, because as an employer, those are the skills I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone who's been a leader before, right? Being a coach, not a coach, a leader on the football team, basketball team, a captain, is good for me to see because it shows me you do have some leadership skills. Grade point averages are great, but it's how you use those skills. So, if you are involved in other activities, it shows me you can multitask and you can still get your work done and do things outside of school. So those are all good skills when I look at somebody's resume. If you do have some job experience, list it next. So if you worked somewhere in an actual job at Meijer, at a fast food restaurant, at, maybe you don't have a specific job where you were getting paid by an employer, but maybe you had a babysitting job, or you mowed lawns or walked dogs. I mean, those are jobs. You're getting paid. Somebody is relying on you to care for their animals, their kids, their yard, whatever the case may be. So it does show some skills that an employer wants to know, especially when you're starting out and you might not have much on your resume. And that's okay. You're going to get there. But you want to make sure you capitalize on the items you have in your toolbox. So you'll list your education, you'll list your experience, and just put some of the job duties and responsibilities out there of what you did. You want to make sure that you are focusing on some of the accomplishments that you had. You want to make sure that you are showcasing yourself. You don't have to highlight your weaknesses on this. This is about selling yourself, which is sometimes hard to do. So you definitely want to focus on your strengths and accomplishments. If you showed up every day on time, and this is the same for school, if you got an attendance award at school, highlight it. That's important to me. If you if you got recognized for being at work every day on time and had perfect attendance, highlight it. I need people who are going to be here every day on time and be dependable. So capitalize on those strengths. You might not even realize their strengths, but they are, trust me. So if you are a volunteer, make sure you put that out there. If you volunteer your time, if you volunteer your talent or your efforts, make sure you put that out there too, because that's a big piece. Even if you've worked, showing people that you are willing to give yourself, give back to the community in some way is a really nice feature for you. And if you're not volunteering right now, you might want to look into different organizations that you might have a passion for helping. For example, I love helping Kent ISD. I love helping the schools. I love doing this kind of stuff. That's my thing. So you just need to find your thing, whatever that might be. My kids will volunteer at Kids Food Basket, or will do stuff with Boy Scouts. So, I mean, all of those organizations, you just want to make sure you're recognizing in your resume, especially when you're starting out. I think Eric told me a story about a young elementary school that the teacher had her students make resumes and they had to apply for the jobs they wanted in the classroom. You know, you can build a resume right now. It doesn't matter what grade you're in, you can build a resume right now. My son, who's in Boy Scouts, had to do it for a merit badge. So do it now. Put your accomplishments on there, be proud of those accomplishments, and start working on that. You'll put your awards out there, like I talked about. If you were on the honor roll, put it out there. If you were a student body president, put it out there. You know, whatever you received, put it out there. Put the dates out there. Show that you have what you've done with school, what you've done with volunteering, so that your future employer will see that. So I do have kind of a template that I would be happy to share. And I know at the end of this presentation, Eric will show my email address, and maybe we can share the template with you as well if you want to use it, but feel free to reach out to me if you do have any questions, or if you want me to review your resume, I'm perfectly happy doing that. I would be happy to look at it for you, give you some feedback, and help you in any way I can. Once you start, I probably wouldn't encourage this of anyone younger than high school at this point, but another really good resource that you should think about is being on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a professional network, and it is a great way to network and connect with companies, to connect with other professionals. So when you are starting to look for a job, if you are starting to look for different positions, you're able to connect with people from those organizations. And for me, I connect with a lot of different people on LinkedIn because I want to grow my network. I want to have other HR professionals I can reach out to and ask questions of. I want other businesses that I can connect with and kind of compare what they're doing versus what we're doing at Custom Profile. So it's a great tool. And I use LinkedIn in my professional job to look for candidates. So if there are candidates out there, I will search LinkedIn to find them for my job openings as well. So there's a lot of opportunity there, and I encourage you to get out there and take a look at it. If you do set yourself up on LinkedIn, connect with me. I'm happy to connect with everybody. I don't need to know who you are to connect with you. And then you have access to my connections. So if you're ever looking for a job and you wanted to search out the HR manager at Herman Miller, you might be able to find them through my connections. So I wanted to share that resource for you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, awesome. Well, if there are any questions, please make sure you put them to the chat box. We'll make sure we address them, and we'll make sure that Jenny is able to talk to them. In the meantime, I know I've got a few questions of my own. So Jenny, I've got a question for you. You mentioned about LinkedIn. So it's funny because that just came up in a conversation in our staff meeting today about how important LinkedIn is. And I think that a lot of students don't realize the value of that because LinkedIn not only allows you to build a resume online, right? But it's also a great way to do some networking. So tell me a little bit more about LinkedIn, and is it appropriate, which you just said it was, so, but I'm asking rhetorically, is it appropriate for students to have a LinkedIn profile, which is, I do believe it is, and then what's the value of that for them?
Yeah, so I would think, you know, maybe your juniors or seniors would probably benefit a little bit more from having a LinkedIn profile just because they're nearing that stage in their life that they need to start looking to what that next step for them after high school is. But the great thing about LinkedIn is you're right, you're building kind of your resume online. And the nice thing is you can go through and they have tons of different skills out there. So maybe when I talked about adding skills and accomplishments to your resume, it's hard to think about all the good things you do, right? And then you just need something to help jog your memory. So being out there on LinkedIn, you can search all these different skills and you might come across a skill that says problem solving. And you're like, oh, yeah, I problem solve all the time. I'm going to put that on there. And oh, I'll go to my resume and I'll make sure I update, because when I was a volunteer, I had to problem solve on how to get this one job done better the last time I did it. So
Right.
I mean, there's just things that will help you make your resume stronger. There's some organizations out there that have their applicant tracking systems. So where you upload your resume to actually searches based on keywords.
That's a good call out.
You know, we don't have that here. I physically look through every resume, but you want to make sure you put some of those keywords in there: problem solving, troubleshooting, team player, collaborative, those kind of things, because those are the things that their system might pull out.
Sure. Actually, that's a great call out. And for those people who are watching this, I recognize there's very different levels and stages along the career path. So when you're 15, 16, 17 years old, the type of resume you're building is going to look different than it will be when you're 30 or 40 years old. That said, maybe stash this away somewhere in the back of your mind. I'm glad you brought up, Jenny, about the idea of keyword searches. So one thing I've always heard is when you're looking at a job application or the job posting, look for those skills that they're saying. And if you can say, I actually have that skill, make sure you put that somehow, somewhere it's in your resume, you can address it, because otherwise if there's a job that is a company that's big enough, their filtering software might skip right over your application or right over your resume because it didn't see that. So that's a great call out.
Right. I'm also going to say that if you mentioned looking at the job posting, you want to make sure you tailor any communication toward that job posting as well. Sometimes you have to do a resume for every job you apply for, because you want to make sure you're saying, let's say you are really good with customer service and you are also applying for like a receptionist. There's similar skills. The receptionist might have in-person customer service. You're dealing with people coming in, you're dealing with the phone. Customer service might be dealing with just the customers here, same skills, but you want to make sure you target the right skills too when you're applying. So a receptionist resume, you might just tweak it a little bit that talks about answering the phone, talks about welcoming guests. And a customer service, for us, a business to business customer service, it's answering emails and responding that way. So some of the time you have to change your resume based on the position you're applying for, and it takes a little bit of work. Some people who are looking for jobs call it a full-time job. So sometimes a full-time job to look for a job.
It's a great call out. Speaking for myself, having worked in education and having worked in business and working in higher ed, I have had to, didn't create a single resume for every single job. It would have been exhausting, but you're right, it is a full-time job. But I've had to tailor and adapt my resume for this situation. So that's a great call out.
Yep.
So a couple of questions specifically about the resume. One question is, which do you look at more? And which do you at custom profile? And which would you say the industry looks at more? Would you say GPA is really, really important, or the experiences and achievements? Because I think some kids are really afraid that, well, my GPA is not so great.
You know what? For me, in our organization, GPA has never been a determining factor. And even for us, a bachelor's degree had never been a determining factor. So for those students out there that maybe aren't looking to go to college, that's okay. What I would rather see is work history. And not the job jumpy work history where you're 3 months here and 3 months here and 3 months here. Some stability. And be able to show that you could try something new, adapt to it. And if it's not for you, it's not for you, but you have to give it a fair shot. So I think that, GPA is nice. And if that's, you have a high GPA and you were on an honor society and you had a lot of those accomplishments, you should highlight them. If you don't have a high GPA, that's okay. I just capitalize on the other accomplishments you have. Maybe you work full time while you were going to high school. That's a huge accomplishment, right? So capitalize on what is special to you.
Well, it's a great call. You mentioned, your resume is your chance to sell yourself. And we just actually learned yesterday, your resume, or they talked about networking. And similarly, sometimes the resume is the first thing that people see of you to get you into the door. Then you got to sell yourself through the interview. But with the resume, if you're selling yourself and you don't have a great GPA, then don't put it on there.
No,
right?
don't put it on there if you don't.
Right, you put the things that are on that are good, and if that's not your strong suit, then don't put it on there.
Yeah.
Another question, and I know you probably have touched on this, and this happens all the time, but kids need to hear how important is spelling and grammar on your resume.
Very important. Please spell check. Please check your grammar. I know my son at the grade he's in, they download Grammarly on all of their devices to help them kind of learn the proper grammar. But please spell check. There is a button on Word for that purpose, right? Use it. If you're struggling with a word, use the tools available to you, but please spell check. Please make sure your structure of your resume is organized. So on my sample, I had dates. Make sure each employer's dates line up. Like, make sure it looks clean and organized. You don't want a date on one side and then a date on another side and make it look all choppy. You want to make sure it's just clean, organized, well spelled, and has good grammar.
Let me follow up with that. And I think I probably should even ask it this way, because I love what you just said, but I think kids maybe have to understand why. Why would you say that spelling is so important? Because a lot of people say, so what? I made a spelling mistake. Why is it important when you as a recruiter are looking at that?
For me, it's attention to detail. So I want to know that you are, I'm not a perfect speller. I miss all the time too. It happens. We're all human. But for me, it's the attention to detail that you just took that extra second, minute, hour just to do one quick check, that you weren't in a super big hurry, that you didn't rush through it, that you took your time, you were thoughtful about it, and you made sure that it was good. And you might still miss something, and that's okay. But sometimes we'll see documents. It could be emails, it could be letters, it could be resumes that have sometimes the text. So like short word, more of like a text word in their resume, making sure you're using the actual word and not like short language, whatever, however you call it. But, just taking that extra second and the attention to detail is a big thing. And that's in anything you do. Attention to detail is something you need for everything.
Sure. As a former language arts teacher, thank you for saying that. There's a difference between texting and formal language, or informal language and formal language. That's a very good call out. A few more questions I have here. What are, for those people who maybe are not familiar, what are references, and are those important to be included on resume nowadays? I've heard some people say, oh, you don't need it, you just need to have them ready for when they're asked for. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so references are the people that would speak on your behalf, speak well on your behalf, right? You're not going to put a teacher that thinks you're a troublemaker on your reference list, right? You're going to find those people in your network, whether it's a close teacher, maybe you babysit, so it's the babysitting family that you have as your reference. You would like, what you should have is maybe 3 to 4 business references. You're not going to put your mom, you're not going to put your dad, to find people who can speak on your behalf as far as your work commitment, your attendance, your anything about you, right? Your dependability. And so you need to find those people. So it could be teachers, it could be an administrator at the school, it could be somebody you work for, a boss at a job, or your dog walking business, or the people you cut the lawns for. But don't put them down as a reference if you don't mow their lawn on a regular basis and they complain to you about, think about who those people are. And in my opinion, references just take up space on that resume, right? You want to stick to one page. I would put something at the bottom of the resume that says references provided upon request, and then have the employer ask you for the references, and then you'll have them ready to go. The big thing too is make sure your references know who you've given that list to, so they can expect a call. There is a lot of times we call references and they had no idea we were going to call. They didn't get their phone, they don't call back. And those aren't the references you want. You want the references who are going to be like selling you to us, right?
Good.
Sometimes a coworker. So maybe you were on the football team and you are the captain and you have one of your star quarterbacks as your reference. That's fine. You have to be careful it's not a friend, but you want to make sure that they would be able to share your leadership skills as captain and what you did for the team to rally. Maybe you guys had a hard season and what you did kind of rally the troops. So think about that kind of stuff, but you definitely don't have to provide it with the resume. You can provide it when they ask.
Good, good. I got one final question for you. So we'll wrap up with this question and then I'll do a wrap up for everybody else. Question came in to me about cover letters. And I had actually had that on my list as well. So I thought that was pretty good. When it comes to cover letters, should we submit cover letters? Should students submit a cover letter when they're doing a resume? Does it depend on the job? And if so, what do you look for in a cover letter?
Yeah, that's tricky. Sometimes, I'll be honest, sometimes I look at resumes or cover letters, and sometimes I just don't have time to look at cover letter. Where sometimes we see errors is with cover letters. So it might say in the cover letter, Dear Jenny Readiness from Custom Profile, I'm applying for your director of sales position, and the position they actually applied for was customer service. So I think cover letters sometimes are just an extra thing that you have to make sure is 100% correct before you send it. If you were connecting with me personally, like after today, you're like, oh, I'm going to send her a cover letter and my resume. There's a higher of a chance of me to look at the cover letter that way. When I'm in our applicant tracking system, I usually go right to the resume, mainly for time constraints. But cover letters are good if they are going to highlight some of the key things that you want the employer to know ahead of time. You could also put that in an email. If you're going to email a resume, just attach your resume and put like the meat of the cover letter in the email.
Makes sense.
And that would make sense too. I think you can go either way on a cover letter, but if you do a cover letter, make sure it's 100% accurate.
That's a good point. Good point. I mean, but what I'm hearing is it's a nice to have. It's not a must have, but it depends on the role. But
right.
That's a good call out. Well, I know we got to wrap up with just a couple more things. So I'm going to share my screen and I want to pull this back in for everybody to see here where we were last at. And are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Wanted to make sure I had at least the right. So I'm going to wrap up for those who are attending today, or if you're watching this on demand. We really do want your feedback. This is a brand new series and we can see ourselves doing other themed weeks and series, sub-series from this, but we need your feedback. What's working, what's not. So if you're a student, if you would just take 2 to 3 minutes to fill out a quick survey at bit.ly/career prep jobs -student, bit.ly/career prep jobs -student. You can even talk about what session you attended and what you got out of that particular session. And if you're an educator, bit.ly/career prep jobs -educator, bit.ly/career prep jobs -educator. We definitely want your feedback. And the last couple of things I just want to mention, thank you, Jenny, for your time today. Jenny's with Custom Profile, and she had said if you want to reach out to her, you can email her directly. So she was happy to share her email address. It's jreadiness@custom-profile.com. So you can reach out with her if you have extra questions or like, hey, can I get a copy of that template that you were sharing? Jenny, thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. Have a great weekend.
Absolutely. And then finally,